Welcome to Echelon Orchid. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford. And in this series, we're going to be talking about critical thinking. So tune in, like, dislike, and if you dislike, please provide a comment on what exactly you don't like so I can provide better comment. I hope you enjoy this series. Have an amazing day. Hey, welcome to the first part of the critical thinking series. And on this first part, or at least a portion of this part, because I have no idea how many we're going to get through, I wind up coming across these critical thinking cards. And I thought it would be kind of interesting to go ahead and unbox it live. As you can tell, it's still sealed up. This is from the makers of yourlogicalfallacies.com. So in here, they right on the box, they talk about there's 24 logical fallacies and 24 cognitive biases. Now, they say it's perfect for calling out people when you're arguing with, or who you're arguing with, spotting actual fake news and manipulation, and throwing at the world in despairing frustration. Not really sure about that part. But anyway, I thought it might be fun. There's a lot of steps to critical thinking. To me, when I first hear this message or this statement of critical thinking, it's really trying to dissect the statements or your thought processes or someone else's thought process. Really, this comes quite heavily when you're trying to develop a strategy. Strategy isn't just a plan, it's a set of goals. And you have to really think about how these goals are going to affect where you currently are. It's not a difficult concept, but sometimes the steps can seem complicated, and what we're trying to do is break them down into complex steps, because complexity we can deal with. The first part about strategy, which many people I think get wrong. So if you think about it in this way, whatever you want to be, and then we'll take yourself as an example. If you were trying to create yourself and everything that you think you can accomplish 5 years from now, whatever that might be, then you have to take a look at where you are today. The strategy is how you're going to get from today to 5 years from now. What are all those steps? What are the goals that are necessary? That's your strategy. Don't make it a wish list. But with that, let's go ahead and get into these nice, lovely cards. I have no idea what to expect here. It could really be anything. And hopefully I don't cut myself doing this. All right. That first part is accomplished. Now let's get into these here cards. Let's see what's going on with these things. I'm just going to do some random ones, see how long it goes. Try not to take up too much of your time this morning or this afternoon or whatever you might be looking at here. So, all right, this first card is just that they are a nonprofit. All right, cool. All right, these are what they're calling... All right, critical thinking call out card. We're just going to go through them. Let's see where it takes us. Who knows? All right. Call out card. Your thinking is bad and you should feel bad. If you've been given this card, it's because the things you said were so full of fallacies. Oh, this must be part of the game. There is a game part in here. All right. We'll save those for a game. Maybe I'll wind up getting the ninja or something like one of these and see if we can play the game here. What's this one? All right, here we go. This is where we're getting to. Fallacy is middle ground. Saying that a compromise or middle point between the extremes is the truth. Holly said that vaccinations caused autism in children, but her scientifically well-read friend Caleb said that this claim has been debunked and proven false. Their friend Alice offered a compromise that vaccines cause some autism. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good point. I've been once told that you should really never compromise, because if you compromise, you didn't get what you want. And I think when we take a look at negotiations. Remember to negotiate in good faith, right? Because you're likely to have to negotiate with this person in the future. So I believe a compromise is when you go less than. So think about what your best alternative to a negotiated agreement is, whatever that is. So that could be your job. You currently have a job. You like it decently enough, at least, and you get paid relatively well. So you wouldn't compromise by taking another job that's less valuable than what you currently have. And value is more than just salary, benefits, all the different things that you work with. So that would be the compromise. You don't ever want to compromise. Always maintain it. But I think this aspect of middle ground, and we hear this quite a bit. Well, the science is settled. Well, first off, science is never settled. But what we can say, like I would, like, for me, I don't know. This is a very touchy one, but mainly because it has to do with vaccines and we're in the world that we're in today. I would say that I understand just the fact that when you're trying to have a logical argument, like, oh well, let's meet in the middle. That's what you do with a negotiation, and as long as in a negotiation you are well within your well above your BATNA, then hey, by all means, go ahead and do it. But I like this. I never really thought of the middle ground being a fallacy, but I certainly understand that. All right, let's go to the opposite one. Your bias is anchoring. The first thing you judge influences your judgment of all that follows. Human minds are associative in nature. So the order in which we receive information helps determine the course of our judgments and perceptions. Be especially mindful of the bias during negotiations. All right, so anchoring, this is a good point. And this is where I would also even say that this is a fallacy when we start talking about negotiations. Many people believe that the first person to make their offer in a negotiation loses, such as salary negotiations. I don't think that's the case. I actually believe the science actually says it no longer matters. What really matters is whether or not when you anchoring is making your place in the negotiation. So let's say you are negotiating for a salary and you happen to believe you're worth $100,000. Well, that's the part where you have to look at, is that your BATNA, $100,000? Like where you currently are? Because if you're currently at 100,000, why would you take 100,000? So let's say you're currently at 75. You believe you're worth 100. Well, what you have to figure out is at what point are you willing to walk away from the negotiation? And if it's 100,000, then that's really that's what you believe you want, and unless you get 100,000, you're just walking away. So you wouldn't want to anchor at 100,000. So let's say you anchor at 110. Now the problem, I believe, with what the card is kind of referring to is that you stick to that 110. Remember, go back to that aspect of you want 100. Now, you saying 110, if they come back, they're going to re-anchor, right? Now, let's go back. We'll go back to your anchoring first. If your 110 is so far out of alignment with whom you are negotiating with, then you're past their BATNA. They're not that zone of negotiation is gone. So they're just going to walk away. But hey, great, because that means in this case, more than likely 100,000 was going to be out of their range as well. Because if it's just 10,000, unlikely they're going to probably come back at like 95. And then you're going to go back and forth until eventually you're at that point. But let's say they were thinking, wow, we were only thinking we were going to pay 80, and now that you might still be within their range, but they thought perhaps during the interview process that 80,000 was going to be acceptable. You anchoring first can cause them to rethink their position because your value is so much higher than what they thought your value was, even though they happen to really like you and want to bring you on. So it can have that effect. Now, the same thing can be said on the other side. If they were to anchor first and they come in at 70, you might, or what I don't remember what number I said, 80 or something like 70, 80, who knows. Anyway, they put something significantly lower. You could also wind up rethinking your position. Now, this is why it's so important to set that BATNA number. Hey, if I don't get this, I'm just walking away. Now, they're so far out of alignment, you might just go, yeah, there's just no way, because I'm really kind of firm on this 110 number. And then, hey, you don't waste your time. So I do think that there's a piece here that the first thing you judge influences your judgment of all that follows, and which is absolutely true, because that the first person anchor can reset someone else's perception. That's why it's very, very important to know your worth. All right, now I want to get back into this next one here. Sunk cost fallacy. You irrationally cling to things that you, or that have, man, I'm not really talking very well today. All right. You irrationally cling to things that have already cost you something. When we've invested our time, money, or emotion into something, it hurts to let it go. Ask yourself, had I not already invested something, would I still do so now? This is a great one, and I bring this up quite a bit in my professional world. You've already paid for it. It's already done. It's already been allocated in the income statement, the assets. It's been depreciated, whatever you want to say. Don't double down on the bad decision. If it's not working, the money's already been spent, and you're going to keep spending money. So it's a sunk cost. The cost has already been allocated for. If it's not working, then stop. And I think this is a great point. If you were able to make this decision all over again, would you choose the exact same path? Now, I would hope the answer would be no. I mean, you might have chosen the right product, but maybe you would have gone about it differently. So I think a great way into getting over the sunk cost is, all right, let's say you would still choose the same product, go back to that strategy that we talked about. Given that this is the goal and this is where it needs to be, re-baseline, recalibrate, reset, change a little bit of your aperture of the world and then move forward. So you pick your strategic goals. You know where you're at today. That's your baseline. Now, what's the strategy in order to get there? Because you've now re-baselined. And then move forward. Maybe that's rolling out a different product and transitioning things. Could be anything. But I think that sunk cost fallacy is a great one. Too many people want to cling on to what they've already decided. The great part, like in the series that I'm doing on the human resources, the human enablement, the agile workforce, well, you could take agile to just about anything. And that means you have to iterate fast. The world's coming at you extremely fast today with all this information overload. So as you get new information and you have kind of considered the new data points, pivot. I don't see any issues with that. Matter of fact, I think that's what the most successful people and companies do. New information has evolved, therefore we pivot. Or maybe you're still on the right track. It could be confirm what you already knew. All right. Oh, I do kind of like, they got Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle. Or, as Bill and Ted would say, Socrates. All right. This is a fallacy. The Texas Sharpshooter. I just like this name. I don't know why that makes me laugh, but all right. Cherry picking data clusters to suit an argument or finding a pattern to fit a presumption. The makers of sugarette candy drinks point to research showing that of the 5 countries where sugar-ette drinks sell the most units, 3 of them are in the top 10 healthiest countries on earth. Therefore, sugar-ette drinks are healthy. Oh, yeah. So I definitely, I see this quite a bit, everywhere. In terms of that fallacy, the Texas Sharpshooter. I don't know how they came up with that name, but I definitely like the name. So, of course, people do this all the time. I think of it as those that are selling a product looking for a problem in a way. So they don't really have a clearly defined problem and then a product to be able to actually solve. So they're looking for a problem to solve, or they make one up. I don't know if that's truly what this is, but I definitely see a lot of people will cherry pick data. I get this quite often when you propose something new for your organization, for your team, anything. So what happens is people will tell you all the reasons why it won't work, and then they will point to, well, there's not enough training, or there's this. Is this really going to work? They will point to it's going to be disruptive. Change is disruptive. That's kind of the point. So they will cherry pick a certain thing and go, well, see, it didn't work here. Well, okay, but it works in 95% of the other cases, just not that maybe 5%. So I definitely see a lot of people doing that. Like they'll take this piece of data and be like, see, this thing right here, it worked here. But I like the name, the Texas Sharpshooter. Yeah. All right. Next one. We'll go to the next fallacy. Anecdotal. Using personal experience or an isolated example instead of a valid argument, especially to dismiss statistics. The example. Jason said that was all cool and everything, but his grandfather smoked like 30 cigarettes a day and lived until 97. So don't believe everything you read about meta-analysis of sound studies showing proven causal relationships. Yeah, this is another one that's kind of like what I just talked about. You want to roll something out, and this one use case goes against the data. Therefore, you're going to cling to that one. And this was a great example. Hey, smoking cigarettes isn't bad for you. My grandfather smoked 30 cigarettes a day, and he lived till 97. Well, I think it's pretty clear if you smoked every day, the probability of you living to 97 is low. It just so happens to be in this example that Jason's grandfather beat the norm. He was an outlier. And I think that's really a key point there. Don't let the outlier be the actual rule. I think that's probably a better way of saying it. Is it an outlier or is it the rule? And pay close attention. All right, we're going to go back to the bias side. Availability heuristic. Wow, these are some... I didn't know that there was this many biases. Your judgments are influenced by what springs most easily to mind. How recent, emotionally powerful, or unusual your memories are can make them seem more relevant. This in turn can cause you to apply them too readily. Try to gain different perspectives and source statistical information. Yeah, no, I can see that. I think this is a big reason why I really enjoy diversity of thought. We recently had a DE&I organization come in, and one of the things they said, which I found very, very interesting, which was when you have some type of problem, what does the group of people look like that you go to help work out that problem. If they're all basically the same, then you don't have diversity of thought. And I thought that was a really good way of looking if you have diversity of thought in your life. And so I looked at my professional world and I looked at my personal world. And I feel like I've got a pretty good makeup of age ranges, of people of different walks of life. So I feel pretty good about that. So when you are in an emotional state, something's happened, whether it be positive, whether it be negative, I think it's good to get yourself checked with those people that are in that circle, whether it be your professional world or your personal world, because they're going to help you to, I would say, adjust, not really come back down to earth, but to get you back thinking the way you might normally. Because a lot of times when we're in those emotional states, we're no longer thinking along the same path that we normally would. This is why we often say don't do something out of anger. I think the opposite is also true. Don't do something because you're overly joyed at the moment. The extremes. Whenever we're working at the extremes, we should be very careful to make decisions. So that's my thought on availability heuristic. And I'm sure anyone out there that disagrees, you can certainly come on and we'll see where we go from there. All right, next bias. Curse of knowledge. I have a feeling I'm not gonna like this one. I definitely am a person that enjoys consuming information and being knowledgeable about as many things as I can be. I don't want to say jack of all trades, but I definitely like when I get involved in something, I want to do it well. And so I really invest a lot of time and energy into those new things in order to develop those skills. All right, curse of knowledge. Once you understand something, you presume it to be obvious to everyone. It can be hard to remember our own prior state of confusion when we didn't understand something. When teaching someone something new, go slow without being patronizing. I think this is a good one. For a couple of reasons. The first that comes to mind, and it might even be a couple of reasons, or maybe there's only one reason, because I'm doing all of this right on the fly just for, practice of actually doing a show solo. So there you go. So you hear people talk about being a lifelong learner. And I read something somewhere, and I'd always tried to do this and didn't realize, and now I make it even more of a point. When you're a lifelong learner, they say you retain about 70% of the information that you learned. But I like to say I'm a lifelong teacher, because what I found is that as soon as you learn something new and you try to teach someone that thing that you just learned, you tend to retain 90% of the information. But I think the danger in what they're talking about here is that person you're looking to teach, remember, you're teaching them at where they are coming from, not from where you are, because they don't have all of your experience. So as an example, if you're going to try to teach a fifth grader calculus, it's probably not going to work out too well. And the reason for that is they haven't gone through all the other math training. So it's not going to work. So if you want to treat some calculus, you first got to get them to a point of understanding equations, pre-algebra, algebra, algebra 2, algebra 3, trig, and then you have an opportunity getting them to calculus. So probably going to take many years in order to get to that point. Well, let's say you're looking to try to teach someone how to make beer, and they've never made beer before. So there's different ways in which you can make beer. And the easiest method is called an extract method, which is you get a syrup and you basically, which is like condensed, it almost looks like condensed milk in a way. But it's got all those grains that have been caramelized already, and it comes in a can, and you can do that. And you basically are like, hey, look, we just need a big pot of water. We got to get it boiling. And once it's, boiling, then we're going to take this syrup and we're going to go ahead and empty it in there. We're going to wait till it to be dissolved, and then we're going to add in some hops. We're going to let this go on for about an hour, and then we're going to cool it down and put it into another bucket. We're going to add some yeast and close up that container and put it in a nice, cool spot. It's the first step in making beer. Now, if you were to tell them, oh, we're going to make a partial mash, well, that means you're going to use some extract and you're going to use some grain. So how would you explain them about the grain? Be like, hey, have you ever made tea from like loose tea leaves? Oh, sure. Well, this is basically the same way. We're just going to take these grains and we're gonna get them in a bag, just like you would, those loose tea leaves, and we're gonna go ahead and steep the grains for a little while. All right, that's a way of doing it. Try to meet them where they're at. Just try to make some analogies to what they're comfortable with. But that only, as a leader, that means you've got to know a lot about your person, and go back to that DE&I thing. It's about the whole person, not just what you see on the surface. You got to try to really get to know them. All right, now let's see. We're at 26 minutes. We'll go over maybe one or two more. All right, we're going to go back to the fallacy. Your fallacy is appeal to nature, making the arguments that because something is natural, it is therefore valid, justified, inevitable, good, or ideal. Okay? And we're going to give it the example. The medicine man rolled into town on his bandwagon, offering various natural remedies, such as very special plain water. He said that it was only natural that people should be wary of artificial medicines, such as antibiotics. Only natural. I guess that's the thing when people say, well, it's just natural. Maybe that's where they're going with this. Artificial medicines such as antibiotics. Antibiotics come from nature. We've just kind of figured out how to make new ones. So let's go back to this. Well, okay. Not everything that's natural is good for you. As an example, if you eat too many apple seeds, you're probably not going to enjoy what happens. If you were to, alcohol is natural. You drink too much alcohol and then you get behind the wheel, not going to go too well for you. Just as there's plenty of things of natural that are good. But I think the fallacy here is just because it might seem on the surface good, dig deeper. Dig deeper. I really like asking the people this question. Tell me more. Well, that's not even really a question here, right? But people tend to like to do that. So if something seems to be on the surface good, really dig down deep. Because, hey, just like the Titanic with the iceberg, on the surface, there's just a small little iceberg. They didn't get to see what was under the water. So I think that's where that's what naturally comes to my mind when I read that. Don't look just to the surface. Anything on the surface can appear good or bad. Really dig deep. All right. I think this will be the last one. Oh, and I like this one. Your fallacy is begging the question. A circular argument in which the conclusion is included in the premise. The word of Zorbo the Great is flawless and perfect. We know this because it says so in the great and infallible book of Zorbo's best and most truest things that are definitely true and should not ever be questioned. That's a good one. The circular argument. We present the conclusion up front. And then we go, see, it's already there. Yeah, like that one. So I'll pause there for this session. We've got plenty of fallacies and biases that are able to pop up in the future. I'm not sure what this card game is all about, but maybe at some point we'll figure that out. So until next time, please subscribe. Go ahead and like if I did a good job. Dislike if I sucked. And then, hey, either if you liked me or you disliked me, tell me, give me some good feedback. I'm looking to improve. I'm looking to provide some content you find valuable. And as always, I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you and take care. Hey, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like it. Please subscribe. If you have any comments, please leave them in there. My guests and I are very interactive. Well, we want to be better, and hopefully you got something out of this. Until next time, take care. Thank you.